Hi, my name is John. Thank you for watching American Alignment. In today's episode, we're going to be talking to a crime scene cleanup crew that's actually very seasoned. Jay, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Jay. I've been in the industry for a little over, just about 3 years now. I've been working for John for a little while, and like he said, pretty well seasoned.
Gene.
I'm Gene Johnson. I've been working for American Biomanagement for a year and 2 months, and I've been enjoying it very well, learning a lot of experiences from the crew, and I'm very, very enjoying the job.
Gracie.
Hi, I'm Gracie McLennan. I've actually been doing this job for a little over 5 years now. Definitely been an experience.
Okay, so today let's talk about your first cleanup that you ever did. That's always a shocker. I remember mine was. Let's start with Jay.
How much detail do you want?
I think we're looking for about your emotional action when you walked in and you actually saw the scene. I know you're former military, so there's been that shock before.
I'd say probably for me the most shocking factor about it was like it was a normal house, pretty well lived in. Like there was photos everywhere, and it just looked like the person was literally just fine and dandy. And then you walk in there, and it's like, okay, this is clearly a trauma scene in here. So it was kind of shocking to see it in contrast to the rest of the house being normal, and then this traumatic event right in my case, my first job, it was in a kitchen. So it was definitely jarring at first, and then obviously you deal with what to actually start with, which was somewhat hard at first because it was the first job, and the training experiences was in my case was fairly limited. But yeah.
So the actual visual.
Yeah, it was shocking to go from because whenever I walked in, it was through the garage, so everything perfectly normal, looked like a great regular house, and then turn a corner into the kitchen, and then there's the decomposition, the remains, and everything in there, and then you're just smacked with the smell. So you have this beautiful house that's filled with this odor that just pervades everything, and it was just, for me, that was definitely shocking and one of the hardest things about it.
And you walked into a scene, you actually can taste it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's when you know it's.
Yeah, like the air is thick. It's almost like viscous, but it's still air.
Yeah, kind of dangerous to be breathing it.
For sure.
Gene, what was your first sight like?
I was pretty much fortunate because my first sight was pretty much actually my first job. Actually, when I first got hired was unattended. It was in Seattle, and I was with a crew that was very experienced, and they pretty much guided me through the ways, and I wasn't pretty much shocked into it because I knew what I was getting myself into, but it was just getting past that first hump, which is the smell, and then visualize, like just seeing it, firsthand. And it, for some people, people can handle it, and then there are some people that can't handle it. So for me, I already knew when I first saw it and I smelled it, it didn't faze me. It was nothing. And I understood that by me and everyone at this job we're trying to turn something horrendous back to something beautiful. And that's our job, So I believe that it's our duty to give our ultimate services because, we are hired to do it. So it was a good experience, and it was a lot of eye-opening stuff because I realized that with the job that we do, that there are times when the family doesn't want to take, the first of kin doesn't want to take their loved one's possessions, and then there are times when they do. But then I think about the times when they don't is that the things that we're living in life is not all about the materialistic things. It's all about what you do in life. Because like for a couple of jobs that we've done, there are jobs when the family doesn't even want to take any of its stuff, and that's for that person who passed away. That's very valuable to them. That's sentimental to them, and for their family to not recognize that, it just says a lot. It's not about materialistic things about in life what you do. It's about the things that you do in life. So it's the job has its ups and downs, but that's why we're here.
You know what's funny is I've had more than one technician tell me over the years, as like, are we really going to throw away, this guy's, records from the military? And well, the family doesn't want anything, and the property management company, there's no next of kin, and we're just disposing of it. And what next of kin doesn't, they're on the other side of the country, they don't want anything.
That I've definitely had to do that a couple of times, and that always gets to me. Like anytime I open up a case and I see like a Purple Heart or a combat infantry badge, I'm like, this guy put blood, sweat, and tears into these things, and nobody wants them anymore. So that's definitely a hard thing to deal with.
Like pictures of his family, his children, like very sentimental, like heartfelt things that like people very value till the day that they expire, which is graduate from light to heaven, So and then for us to just, it's our job to get rid of it. But I think about it like that's life. It's not about the materialistic things that we all buy, but it's all about the impact that we do to other people.
I remember the very first suicide I did, and I remember the desk. I remember how the body fluid was coagulated on a glass computer desk and made this really weird formation. And I haven't actually seen it since. But at the same point in time, I remember the property manager was pissed off that the guy committed suicide, and anything of value in there, he didn't pay his rent. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's like he's not talking about him like he was a person.
Gene, I mean, did it emotionally bother you? It's almost like you're throwing away somebody's life.
Not mostly bothered me, but it just made me realize that like at the end of the day that this is our job. But at the end of the day, like it is what happened. It's reality, you know what I mean? But then it's I have to put my professionalism on point and just know that okay, what's the scope of work is the scope of work. So what the job is being told, I have to do it. So, but of course, in the back of your mind, you're a human being and you have your own, your own stuff. But then me as a human being, I'm thinking like, man, they're throwing away someone's. Like, we have to discard this stuff because there's no first of kin. But it's something to the very process for me when I was working because it's it was new for me. But next couple of jobs, it got used to it, because it's just.
And then Gracie had it. I mean, the very first thing you ever did. I mean, you walked in and you took a look. Was it shocking, or?
Yes. My first job was, like I said, is the worst job I've done this entire time I've done Biohazard. And it was an almost 5-month unattended. It was about 4.5 months. The walls were basically crawling. The floor was one big pile of bugs, and the smell, you could smell it before you even walked in the house. You could see the flies were all over the windows. They were black, basically. And the smell was just petrified into everything. It hit you like a freight train. We were on that one. Plus, it was also a hoarding situation, and the guy smoked in his house for 15 years. It was like every horrible situation that you can have in a job was in this job. I mean, there was even paint cans that were filled with poop. Like, it was every biohazard contaminant that you could ever think of was in this one house. And that was what I was thrown onto. We had to drive probably 6 hours in the middle of summer, probably over 100, 103 degrees. And that was in the house. Outside, that wasn't even in our suits. So it was just one of those jobs where even though you're in a biohazard suit, even though you getting the smell out, it sticks to you like you just rolled in it yourself. So you take off your suit, you go outside, and that smell would follow you for days. You could not get it away. And then on top of that, just the amount of clutter that we had to pull out of this guy's house. It was one of the worst hoarding situations I've ever seen. It took 2 days alone just to get the smell out of the walls and to clean everything up in the guy's house. And it was kind of confusing though, because the guy lived alone. Nobody had found him for a long time. Nobody checked on him, but he actually had neighbors. It was a small little 5 apartment complex, all next to each other, one story, and somehow the neighbors next door didn't smell anything for months. And it kind of amazed me how somebody can sit for so long. Nobody checks up on them. Neighbors can't smell it. Neighbors don't think to go check on them. And just to see how certain people live and what happens to them, it's honestly kind of remarkable in ways. Just over the years of the different hoardings we've done or the different deaths we've done, to think kind of like how Gene said, when you're throwing away this person's life, that's you think about it in a way that, yeah, it's your job, and then you also think about it in a way as I'm basically throwing away this person like they didn't exist, like their family didn't want anything, they didn't have friends. And sometimes it does hit you emotionally, you know, you stop and you evaluate your own life. You're like, what do I have to do in life to where this is not me, you know? Like, I don't want to be like this person. I don't want to sit in my house after I've passed away for 4 months and have a bunch of people I don't ever know or have never met come in and just throw away my life. Like, so it makes you really stop and think for a while. And when you're going through these people's personal effects, you get to see how they lived life and what they as a person could have done different. And it makes you just question a lot of things.
It always bothered me. So
We actually just recently got done doing a job where it was kind of the same thing. Next of kin, property manager, they didn't want anything. The guy had boxes upon boxes of paperwork, and it was just years of treatment for alcohol. He's a very, very big alcoholic. Well, unfortunately, the reason that we had to come in and clean him was because he drank himself to death. So to see all of his testimonies from the years of treatment that he's done, the wrongs that he tried to make right, and to see somebody put so much effort into fixing their life and then to just go back to that way because I'm assuming just something in their brain or in their personal life didn't work out. And just to see that, it kind of it hits you. You really have to stop and think, like, what if this person wouldn't have gotten back to that? You know, would we have ever been here? Would we have ever done this job? Because we look at it as, I mean, we're biohazard technicians. We got a job to do. We're going to get in there. We're going to get it done. But you also look at this person as this is their life. You know, you're putting yourself in their life.
That was the airman, right? Yeah. I mean, you put that pretty much perfectly, because we did see numerous attempts at rehabilitation, and there's tons of books that
journals, and then the scriptures, and he trying to turn himself to God, you know. But it was just, you know, I believe that like the damage was already there, you know. I believe that like it just overtook everything, you know. But
I mean, it's very similar to what you guys are describing. And you go into a meth house, and you're looking at like a family that just like literally disintegrated and fell apart, and they fell into drug addiction, and it just overwhelmed them. And then next, you know, they basically lost their kids, they lost everything, and then the sheriff finally evicts them, and then we're in to do the cleanup, and they abandon all their property and just walk away.
What gets me about meth jobs is where you actually see the ones where they had the kids in the house with them, especially newborns. We've done a lot where there's newborn baby stuff and there's drug paraphernalia in the same room as all this kid's belongings. And it just makes you wonder, like, what goes on in your brain to want to do that with a newborn child.
definitely shocking whenever you're bagging up like infant clothes, and it's like, why was this kid here?
or for example, this one of the jobs I had to do, you know, he was a social worker, but then he fell into fentanyl and meth, and then just knowing that like he was the one that was helping people throughout the years, he couldn't help himself out. And that's pretty sad because he was a social worker and he had all these years, all these attempts of helping all the people in society, but the one person he couldn't help out was himself, which is very sad. So that's why I come to think about it, is you can help how much people in this earth, but always still love yourself, always still care for yourself, always have a welfare check on yourself, don't trash your temple, which is what God bless you with,
Mm-hmm. And he was a social worker for like 30 years. I remember that job. So like his his exterior persona was a 30-year social worker, respected, loved, and helps his community. And then we entered his home after all of that, and we got to see all the darkness that he had inside. And it's jarring to go from seeing like a driver's license photo of a person smiling, and then we look around the person's home like that, and it's like there's more than just that smile in that picture.
Gracie was at this scene, and we can't go into too much detail, but this child was decapitated and hacked to death with a instrument. We can go with that. And I remember the day very vividly, and I remember everybody there, but I remember what happened before, or I don't remember what happened after. And when I knew I had PTSD from the site, it was progressively where I would wake up in the mornings, and about 5 or 10 minutes, 15 minutes after I would wake up, I'd be right back at the scene. Or I'd be remembering it, or it would come to me, and one of the things that they tell you to do in this business is not look at the pictures, because that's, everybody has a soul. Even though we can handle the visuals and the smells, and a lot of people can't do this for a living, right? But you still have a soul, and you still have, it still affects you. But when you look at a picture, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, this kid looked just like my son. And that got into my brain, and next thing you know, it stuck with me. So it stuck with me for a long time. Pictures are really difficult to look at. At the same point in time, it bothers. I remember it used to bother me. The first couple of sites, it's like, well, property managers and there was no next of kin. Nobody wanted anything. Just dispose of everything. Just get rid of it all. And you sign the paperwork, you're authorizing this, yes, blah, blah, blah. And then we go in and we just basically throw away somebody's life. And it's like they didn't exist. And it just all goes to the dump. It's all gone. And with the one you're talking about, the airman, that was a rough one, because I have a lot of respect for military. And that was real difficult. But his family was estranged, and
Yeah, that's part of a lot of the self-help books that I saw that he had, was how to like reconnect with family and how to reconnect with loved ones, but he just never got there.
there's just stuff that something just stands out that,
Mm.
When a really bad hoarder has one room that's super clean, and
Oh,
it's probably the weirdest stuff you could ever imagine in that room.
I actually have had that happen. And I could never figure it out. And you open up all these doors, and and then you open up one, it's almost like everything's perfectly fine. And it didn't make any sense to me either.
Say, because I won't name names or the company, but I do remember doing a job for a very rich person, and their house was one of the nastiest hoards we'd ever done for this company. But you walked in this back room, opened the door, and it's the most detailed, cleanest movie collection that you could ever imagine. And it's a whole room. I mean, it was adult movies, but it was the most.
And now you opened up the door for that. I had a partner of mine at the time, right? It's no longer a partner of mine, but he and another coworker were up on a site, and let's just say that when they phoned me up, I was like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, bestiality porn."
whoa.
And I was like, "Wow, okay." And that was way past the stuff that I had from earlier that year. And they're like, you now have like won the award for the nastiest situation I've ever seen ever. One that sticks out in my mind, and this was over east of the mountains, and this guy was a hoarder uh, of porn, and I don't think I can go into a description of what it wasn't your average porn, but it was quite a bit of porn. When you opened up the door to the apartment, you could open up the door, and the swing pattern on the door was unobstructed. After you got inside, you were actually going up. And there are magazines and DVDs. We hauled out that day 3 box trucks stuffed full of DVDs and magazines of porn.
He didn't miss an episode, huh?
Well, I got stuck in the room where the guy died. I actually stuck in the room. I was the senior technician. This is about it's about almost 15 years ago now. Yeah, it's about 15 years ago. And was in the room where he died. I couldn't get out because there's so much fluids impacted into all the material. So I'm taking shovels and actually shoveling up like clumps. And it's magazines and DVDs. And his kitchen was hoarded with just garbage to the point it was unusable. And all this guy was eating was Hot Pockets, potato chips, and just like Funyuns and things like that, and pop. He had we couldn't see any other food. One of my coworkers went to the adjacent bedroom. It was a 2-bedroom apartment, and he's trying to open the door up, and this is a pretty stout man. This guy's a strong dude, right? And I could hear him cussing. And I'm stuck in the room, and I'm like, and there's this little 13-inch TV DVD thing, right? It says DVD, and this guy decomposed. He decomposed in this place for roughly 3.5 months, and because he prepaid his rent for 3 months, and people say they saw him, 3 months ago or ish, and then the property management company never went into the unit because he was prepaid up months ahead. I don't know what the gig with that was, but he sure had a lot of money for porn. I remember that much. In the bedroom, comparatively to what we're looking at, is picture a pile of porn. These are magazines and DVDs going up to the ceiling, like literally. Then there was a desk over to the side, and then where the death halo happened, where he dropped and decomposed, was off to the right. And there's this DVD, this little TV, 30-inch, little tiny TV. And it was DVD. DVD was all over the screen and it had been playing for months, right? And yeah, I know I'm kind of messed up in the brain. I pushed play. And amazingly enough, there was porn, right? And it's the porn menu came up for, what you want to watch. And then so I had a lot of time, I'd say, was in this room, probably about 8.5 hours. I had to do a cutout. I had to move all the garbage out of the way so I could get to the flooring. It went into the walls, and I tried to chase it into the bathroom. And in the meantime, we've got the rest of the crew, and I could hear crew members outside. There was Crazy Wade was there, right? And Mr. Joel was there too. And I'll say, I found another one. And they were finding laptops. What this guy would do is he would have laptops, and then they get mixed in with the horde of porn. And then he couldn't find them, so he'd just go buy another laptop. I think total that day there was about 4 laptops that came out of that place. And again, 3 box trucks full of DVDs, porn, and Hot Pockets and wrappers, and potato chips and pop bottles.
I'll bet that like most of 4 laptops Guarantee all those terabytes are full of porn. I guarantee they're all
I
filled with
wouldn't want to
porn.
make a money bet with you, Gene, because I'd probably lose. I think it's even money. So I'm in the bedroom. I'm got a lot of time to think about what happened in there. And I'm like, and then there's this desk. It's like there's this mound of porn. And there's this desk right here. On the desk, it has this kind of like red halo where you have a blood pattern, almost like where you smack something into it and it was blood. I finally figured what happened. He was doing his business, watching his little TV, right? And he would throw magazines and DVDs into this pile. And my theory is that he had something that he wanted to watch again. And he had probably his trousers in a compromised position. So he wallowed his way up the pile and was coming back down and lost his footing and then struck his head into the desk. So if anybody are asking if pornography is dangerous, it's extremely dangerous. Yeah, it's extremely dangerous. So that was one that stuck with me. There's ones that that you can wrap your mind around with, and like, okay, I'm out of this in a mode where I can actually fathom some type of humor, so I don't get insane thinking about this. You guys ever find yourself?
I was doing that while you were telling the story. I was like, is collecting porn kind of like collecting comic books? Like, does it increase in value over time? Like that a question.
We estimated lightly that there was $78,000 in this time period. This is 2010-ish.
Does that appreciate with time? Would that have turned into 150,000 by now? Does porn appreciate?
I guess it would, but the thing is, and sorry, we're getting.
Oh no, you're good.
Okay. I think that new platforms exist where you don't have to buy a DVD or
But like that's like what you said. That's the kind of the thought process to make yourself able to do the job, is asking a question like that. I was literally doing it while you were telling the story.
They do have red carpet walks for porn stars, so I feel like as long as whoever was on the video did that red carpet walk, maybe it would appreciate
And
it.
I'm sure to someone somewhere they'd pay a lot of money for it.
Probably those DVDs is sentimental to him because he spent money for it. And so he's like, I'm gonna keep this.
What makes it collectible or something valuable is low quantity. And last time I checked, there's a lot of porn out there. Yeah. So sorry, I don't think. But I do believe the Marilyn Monroe edition of Playboy, if it's in pristine condition, fetches some money.
That's value. See, that proves the concept. Somewhere in that pile, there was something valuable.
What blew me away was when my coworker, or my partner at the time, got into the other room and he finally got his way in. What happened was, and this is the bizarre thing, the other bedroom had one bed in there, right? And we're not going to describe how he modified the mattress. We're not going to go there. But he had stacks of magazines of porn, no DVDs in this room, all magazines, like towers from the floor. And what happened is one of the towers collapsed and took another tower with it and fell into the door. And that's why the partner could not open it up. Okay. But that was interesting.
You didn't find a ton of socks laying around, did you? A bunch of toilet paper? I'm sorry.
No, wait. A lot of Hot Pockets and dirty underwear on all the door handles.
Ooh, door handles.
Yeah. Door handles.
It's puzzles, just piecing things together.
Yeah. Well, I had a lot of time to stay in that room and think about things. So, I mean, yeah, it pretty much surmised that he was hiking up and then turned around, and it didn't end well. So the pornography is extremely dangerous.
For sure.
You ever find yourself going to scenes and you're thinking to yourself, like, you think about the person who was the victim or what have you. What were you guys thinking, or what drove you to the majority of them are absolute tragedies and they're heart-wrenching. But then some you walk into, it's like, I mean, it's just, your head snaps. It's like, what?
Yeah. I mean, there was one that was like it's kind of almost the exact opposite of that, where like literally the entire home was like completely pristine, minus obviously the spot where the person, you know, died and decomposed. And they literally had, you know, somewhat similarly, but like entire bedrooms collections of like Disney commemorative plates. And where they died was literally like in the middle of that room, but there was no like spatter or contamination anywhere. So it's like that's one of the things where I walk in and I'm like, what happened here, you know? It was confusing scene.
Have you guys had anything stuck with you for a while? Or
Ooh, several. Does anybody want to go first?
Go ahead.
Oh, all right. Probably the one that sticks with me the most. It was a suicide of a teenager with a hunting rifle. Yeah, that was actually my first solo job when I was not training anymore, and it was almost exactly how you would imagine it. It's one of the few things that like TV scenes probably got right. Literally all over the ceilings, clothing, floors, everything. I was speaking with the next of kin, the father at the time, and he was obviously distraught and heartbroken. The entire family had not been in that room at all, so they knew literally nothing about it. So I was in there kind of piecing everything together, and I was unfortunately the one that found the suicide letter. So I had to be the one to pass that on to the family and was there for that. So experiencing the sheer, it's hard to describe that. There's like, the air changes, there's a density there. Like, I'll always remember what it felt like in the home after that. It was already dark and sad and terrible, but after that it kind of shifted from all of that to just almost a pure melancholy feeling, like nothing else actually mattered anymore. And they didn't even care that I was there anymore. They didn't care about anything else in the room. They didn't care about the scene. No more questions. It was just utter silence while I was working. And that I'll always remember, just the silence while I was cleaning and moving things, and knowing that the family had just gotten that note. I had given it to them, and they're only like 20 feet away outside the home. So to me, it's a very emotional memory and sticks with me even now. I can remember it almost so vividly that it feels like I was there again. I'm almost starting to shake a little bit remembering it. Anybody else?
For me, it was probably a married couple, double suicide. It was the wife had shot herself first, and then the husband shot himself, and it was actually at the dinner table while the kids were eating dinner. So to walk into that scene and hear that the kids actually had to watch that happen, that one was a little bit heartbreaking to see. No suicide note, just both the wife and husband decided, hey, I guess it's our time, and did it in front of both their kids. And one of the kids was, I believe the kid was 6 and the other one was 9. So unfortunately they're at that age where they're going to remember that too. So that one got everybody at the scene that day. Nobody really said much that day. We just kind of got the job done and left because we didn't really want to discuss that.
anything from you, Gene?
I believe that one time that we did 3 suicides in a week. It was 3, or like probably 3 to 4. It was jam packed. But then I think like 2 of the stories that I believe I heard was, it was right around Valentine's Day, and it was Valentine's Day. Like we were all set to go home, but then we had a call, unexpected suicide. So like on Valentine's Day, we found out he on Valentine's Day out of all the days, and in front of his spouse. So we're like, wow, that was pretty dark, And he was pretty much going through a moment. And then the other one was me and Grace. We had to go to I forgot where it was, but this person went to his bathroom, didn't say anything to his partner. No, the house was pretty much empty. It looked like they were pretty much trying to rent it out to someone because they just moved in. And the backstory was he just went inside the bathroom, grabbed a big kitchen knife, went inside and just started getting himself inside the bathroom. And the partner didn't hear anything until they, you know, trying to look for him and found him, you know, just all out in the bathroom. But just a note that like he went inside the bathroom, didn't say one word to his couple or to his partner, and just started, you know, just started stabbing himself. So
That same week, we also had the other suicide that the guy tried to slit his wrists and then tried to stop it.
yeah, you're right.
And
It's
then,
everywhere.
yeah, and he tried to get to his phone and didn't get to it in time.
And then you can see the smears on the wall where like he was trying his best to get
Trying
up
to
on
crawl
because
to
his
it.
phone was right next to the washing machine, right? Yeah,
Yep.
you're right. You know, like he could tell that like he regretted it because you could tell that like there was pools of blood just trailing everywhere. And then what Grace was right was probably was freaking out because it was going everywhere, trying to wrap himself with a towel and just passed out. And then he was trying to like grab his phone, but that's how we saw the streaks on the wall. You know, so it kind of by looking at the scene, you kind of like put pieces together of what happened after. I mean, like it's pretty traumatic, but just knowing that like you can see the smears, that like he had regret. You know, he still, you know, was trying to still stop whatever he ultimately did to himself. You know.
We actually we doomed that suicide week because in a 2-week period we had 6 suicides. Yep. So for that week will forever be suicide week.
I had one of the most heinous murders I did, Korean War veteran, and he'd invited a gal to stay in his house. The landlords were the ones that hired me. They told him, no, don't have this gal around at all. And this guy's a veteran, and you know, older guy. We're talking about a woman who's 5'3" and 110 pounds. And she took him out with a meat cleaver. And what you're describing about the marks, he was trying to get to the phone after she attacked him, and he didn't make it. So
She probably drugged him or something, or probably sedated him, halfway sedated him or something.
I don't
You know,
think that according to her,
she's 5'3", 110 pounds. If someone, who knows how hard she hit him? You know?
she hit him from behind on the initial blow, because I figured that out from I found part of him in the living room, and the chairs aimed at the TV, so she came up from behind, most likely. And then the next thing you could see, there was 2 ways into the kitchen. One was this way and one was that way, and she went around this way, and coming in, because I could tell by the splatter patterns, and she caught it right before he got to the phone, and that was the end of that. So those ones are you know hard to deal with too.
I also did one actually by myself that it was a couple that was fighting. It was a domestic dispute, and the dog went and bit the guy in the ankle. He started bleeding all over, and in just a rage fit, he grabbed his gun and then shot his wife in the leg. And she was actually, it was in an apartment building. She was running down the hall trying to beat on all the neighbors' doors because he was chasing her with a gun. So that was actually, it looked, I mean, luckily she didn't die. He got arrested, but that was one of those scenes where it looked like a hardcore murder scene because the amount of blood that came out of her leg and his leg, and the dog got shot and killed on top of it. So it was, that one was a lot.
That's similar to that one guy that was on mushrooms and heroin and mushrooms, and we went upstairs and his whole apartment was all trash. It looked like it was a whole murder scene. There was blood everywhere. There's glass everywhere, food everywhere. Like it was thick glass from the table.
The police dragged him out. There was like blood marks on the walls and in the carpet.
The funny
and
part
everything.
about that is it's actually the same building.
Really?
Yes, both those jobs were the same
Cursed building.
I remember that.
It must be a hot spot. It must be a hot spot.
Yeah, because I called you guys to tell you guys what I was doing, and you were like, "Oh yeah, we did a job there." And I was,
I was like,
same building.
How do the carpets look? We cleaned those carpets.
You guys have had all these years of experience in the industry. What's the most challenging thing you find about what we do?
Honestly, probably landlords.
Oh, I got a lot of stories about landlords.
They are some of the most unruling, just downright mean people. Like they give no respect to the person that deceased. They either want a penny pinch and they don't want anything gone, or they're the complete opposite and they want everything gone. And they just, they have it in their head that the job's going to go a certain way, and when it doesn't, they instantly just start getting mad, and you have to fight them the whole freaking way.
They'll just make snide little comments like, hey, we have to remove this subfloor because of something, and they'll make a snide comment that's like belittling the situation as a whole, which, like you said earlier, kind of gives the attitude that they don't see them as people, you know? So a lot of times the landlords make it difficult. Like I'm not an angry guy. I don't get angry very much, but when someone starts talking like that about somebody who just went through this,
They don't give time to mourn to their mentality. Like the show must go on, but at least give family time to mourn. You know, give that mourning time. You know, because the situation just happened.
It was 2010. I remember I had an incident happen with a landlord, and I got a call from the mother. Her son had committed suicide. And I show up, and the guy that owned the building was there, and he was, and his eyes were sticking out of his head practically. And he goes, look what he's done, how much damage he's done. And the mother's crying, and he's talking about how he's going to sue her. You're paying for this. I'm not paying for anything. This guy owns an apartment building. Okay, so I had to tell him, like, okay, you know, first off, she's not connected to the estate of. She has no legal connection to what her son's entity. You signed a lease with him. And I said, and if you don't back down and stop making her like cry, and my former partner was there with me, I said, you're going to be real popular on the news. And I threatened him with going to the media. And he goes, well, who's paying for all this? And I said, your insurance is going to pay for it because it's structure damage at this point. And then when he started hearing about like how the insurance would most likely be replacing the floor and, you know, items that were destroyed because he's covered under his policy, then his attitude changed dramatically. So
I'll say it's either landlords or family members on suicides, kind of like that one you were saying with the family in the note. We've done a lot of suicides where you deal with the family members that are just crying, or either they're crying or they're pissed off. It's somehow one or the other, and it's just a heartfelt moment where you gotta, you know, you got a family member who's crying. Their family member just killed themselves. They ask you like, hey, can I have a hug, or do you just want to sit down with me? You know, like you actually sometimes you take the time and you give them a hug or you sit down with them, because you have to realize, like, yeah, you're there to do a job, but you're still a human being.
they're people. We see them as people because, like we said earlier, while we're doing our jobs, we come into contact with memories of these people in various ways, and to see somebody who knows them that much better going through that, you want to help. Your humanity takes over.
Turning something, you know, very horrendous back to something, you know, back to beautiful, you know. And if we're able to do that and show that, then I'm for it, you know.
We actually just recently did one a few weeks ago. The gentleman's dad had passed away, and at first he was surprisingly positive. Like, you actually had to give the man props. He was so positive for the things that was going on in his life. And then by the end of the job, you could see him starting to tear up and cry. And I mean, we had been there for a few days and I had never seen him tear up or cry. And he just looked at me and he's like, can I have a hug? And I was like, yes. So it's just those moments that really hit home for you or hit your heart, and you're like, I feel for you. I know I'm here to do a job, but I feel for you.
Those people, they stay with you. Like the family that I spoke about earlier, like I could paint them. I'm not a good artist, but I could paint them down with how vivid they are in my memories.
it's a long drive home when you're teared up.
Yeah.
Or we also did one where, I mean, for us it was kind of funny because we ended up having to swim in feces that day. But
Oh, wait a minute. Let's look. How much feces do you have to swim in?
luckily it wasn't that much, but we also didn't mean to. It was totally on accident. The ladies' bathroom basically collapsed in on itself, and every time they flushed the toilet, there was a hole in their pipe. So every time they'd flush, feces would go down into the crawl space. Well, we didn't realize until we physically went to go into the crawl space that it went at an angle like this. So we went to go set ourselves in, and we just ended up sliding down,
into
and
it.
we slid right into it.
Like a water slide.
Yeah.
We had to shovel all of that. We
So-
literally had to use shovels.
For us, we were trying to stay positive because we just ended up slipping in a bunch of feces. But when I got there and we were doing the job, the client actually kept stopping me like a bunch of times just so I could sit there and talk to her. That's literally what she asked. She's like, "Can you please just talk to me?" Because, you know, she's overwhelmed. She has no idea what's going to happen, how to get her house fixed. You know, all she knows is she's having a biohazard company in her house. So there was a few times I would stop and just sit down and talk to her and, you know, hear the stuff that she's going on with in life, especially because this was actually the day before Thanksgiving. So on top of trying to have her whole family come in, you know, her bathroom just collapsed in on itself. So it definitely took some time just to conversate with her for a few minutes and like reassure her, like, hey, things will get better.
Would be, I mean, you guys have heard, you know, stories from me about companies that are predatory, unethical, that, you know, overcharge for this type of work and then lean people's houses and then take their houses away from them. I mean,
How do I feel about them?
yeah,
I mean, that's
I think the client's already been through enough hardship. Why put them through more?
there's if the word evil were to apply here, I would use it, but that feels too clinical for it. Like it is predatory, it's harmful, and it leaves a lasting impression that like an already traumatic experience in people's lives that's going to be with them forever is going to be made exponentially worse by a company that's trying to take whatever they have left from them.
Because I feel like just because they're in that vulnerable position, then they're gonna be trying to take advantage of them because they're at a vulnerable position. You know, they're at a traumatic position and they're vulnerable. So of course, people like that are gonna take advantage of that.
And even they can be heartless too whenever the family doesn't have insurance or a means to pay the deductible or whatever it may be. They'll be heartless and just say, well, we can't help you, good luck, and just leave. So that's I have no fondness for companies like that. Entities, I guess.
well, the first company in this state to offer no deductibles was us, and the other companies say that they're not. The way that came into existence, they did a property management suicide. Gal was been dating some guy. He showed up. She's a single mom, and he popped over and he said, you know, hey, let's get back together. And she said, well, I'm actually seeing somebody else and we're intimately involved. I can be your friend. She went to the kitchen, came back, and he laid on the couch and shot himself. So I was another one where I showed up, going up a set of stairs, and I'm greeted by the building owner, and about how they're not going to pay for anything, and I'm not, you know, nobody's cutting you a check, meaning me, blah 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 blah. And he had this gal in tears. He was talking about like how he's going to grab her deductible, evict her, sue her. I went in and actually was fairly contained. That was the first pro bono job. I turned around to the owner property manager woman and said, it's pro bono. And she is, and then still wanted to argue with me. And I said, pro bono means it's free. And she goes, well, I want that in black and white. And I said, no problem. And so
That makes me feel good about working here.
nowadays, more companies that are predatory, that are out there, actually grease the wheels with public officials. They throw big money around because they basically ransack the insurance companies. It's, you know, one of the things that we're going to be doing in the next couple of weeks, and you guys are all appearing on the new show that we're making called Crisis Clean. We're lifting the veil on the industry and showing it for what it is. So, is there anything else you guys would like to add to, you know, or sit down? I really appreciate you guys taking the time to sit down. I know some things are hard to talk about, especially when you relive old memories.
Guess just appreciate the chance to talk about it because I don't have any friends or family that I can talk about this with. It's hard for us when we live it, and a lot of people can't do it at all. It's hard for them to even hear it. And I just appreciate being able to talk about it.
I always found it was a good conversation starter at parties. Gene, Gracie.
Yeah, definitely probably the same thing that Jay said. Like, you know, there's not a lot of people that can handle what we do, and that even talking about it, they can't even handle the conversation part of it. So actually being able to sit down and have those conversations about those hard things that you've had to see and live is that's probably what people like us need. I'm not going to say we need counseling or therapy, but this is like our version of that.
That's why we rely on each other so much, and why we talk to each other in the ways that we do, is we're able to do that.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for coming today and talking to me on the show. This is John with American Lineman. Thank you so much for watching today. God be with you.